All right, today we're going to dig into the mind of a Renaissance master. And I mean a real titan of the art world. We're talking about Titian. But we're going to look at his genius in a way that might totally flip what you think you know. So, let me ask you something. What does the word original actually mean to you? When you hear it, you probably picture, a lone genius, someone who gets this bolt of lightning from the blue and creates something brand new, right? Just poof, out of thin air. Okay, hold that thought, because when you look at a painting like this one, Titian's incredible The Flaying of Marsyas, I mean, wow. To our modern eyes, this just screams originality. It's raw, it's powerful, it's emotional. It feels like he just reached into his soul and pulled this thing out. This is the Titian we all imagine, right? The ultimate master, the innovator.
Okay, but what if I told you that his genius, and really the whole idea of genius back in the Renaissance, had almost nothing to do with inventing something new from scratch? What if it was all about something else?
To figure that out, we first need to tackle what we could call the myth of originality.
Yeah, we have this really romantic idea of the artist, don't we? This person all alone, creating purely from their imagination. We love what's new, what's different, what no one has ever done before. But here's the thing, trying to apply that modern lone genius idea to an artist from the 1500s, well, that's where we start to miss the whole picture.
And to see why, we have to go right back to the beginning, back to how an artist like Titian even learned to paint in the first place. And it all started with learning by imitating.
You see, a young kid back then didn't go to art school to, find themselves. No way. He became an apprentice in a master's workshop, and his job was to grind pigments, prep canvases, and, this is the most important part, learn to paint exactly like his teacher. The whole workshop was a team effort, and the goal was to have one unified style.
And this right here, this just shows it perfectly. Up top, you've got a Madonna and Child by the master Giovanni Bellini. And below it, that's an early one from his student, Titian. I mean, just look at them. The way Mary's head is tilted, how she's holding the baby, even that landscape in the back. Titian isn't just inspired by Bellini here. He's literally learning by copying his master's style piece by piece.
So, and this is so important, this wasn't seen as plagiarism. This was the curriculum. This was how you learned. Before you could become a master, you had to completely master your teacher's style. Originality just wasn't the point, skill was.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, this wasn't just something he did as a student and then grew out of. Let's talk about the art of the copy, because it was a huge part of his entire professional career.
That's right. For his entire, super long, famous career, Titian was constantly borrowing, copying, and adapting work from other artists. We're talking rivals, even painters who weren't as famous as him. It was just a core part of how he created.
Just look at this. On the left, you've got a portrait of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V by a painter named Jakob Seisniger. And on the right, that's Titian's version from just 1 year later. It's pretty much a direct copy of the whole setup. So what on earth is going on?
Well, the genius is in the difference. Look at Seisniger's original on the left. It's got this kind of hard, linear feel to it, right? It's a bit stiff. But now look what Titian does. He uses oil paint to give it this soft, atmospheric glow. He takes a pretty standard portrait and turns it into this idealized vision of pure power and nobility. He didn't invent the pose, he perfected it. And this was totally normal. As the art historian Bruce Cole puts it, there was absolutely no stigma attached to this. In fact, taking someone else's idea and making it better, that was seen as a totally legitimate, even admirable thing for an artist to do. Borrowing was a huge source of both learning and inspiration.
And that brings us right to the heart of Titian's real genius. He wasn't a master of invention. He was a master of transformation.
And honestly, there's no better story to show this than the portrait of Isabella d'Este. Get this, when she was 55, she hired Titian to paint her. But there was a twist. She didn't want him to paint her as she looked then. Nope. She wanted him to paint her as she looked 3 decades earlier. The problem? Titian had never even met her when she was young. The only thing he had to go on was an old portrait of her when she was already middle-aged.
So this here is a copy of the painting Titian was given to work from. As you can see, it shows a pretty matronly, middle-aged Isabella. Not exactly the glowing youth she was hoping for, right? So Titian's job was to take this image and somehow turn back the clock 30 years.
And here's what he came up with. The transformation is just breathtaking.
He smooths out her features, he makes her eyes sparkle, he completely changes the entire vibe. The middle-aged woman is just gone, and in her place is this vision of perfect, idealized beauty. He took this unflattering source and didn't just rewind time, he basically painted a whole new reality.
Just like the historian said, Titian reinvigorated Isabella. This, right here, this was his genius. It wasn't about dreaming up ideas from nowhere, it was about taking what already existed and using his incredible skill to make it so much better.
So what this all points to is a completely different idea of genius, one that makes sense for the Renaissance, not for our 21st century world.
You see, originality back then wasn't about rebelling against the past. It was about working within tradition to make it even better. The belief was that you could do your best work by staying within the boundaries of these time-honored traditions, that the greatest art could be made by standing on the shoulders of giants.
So, when we think about creativity in the Renaissance, we've got to flip our perspective. It was all about tradition, not rebellion. Borrowing wasn't cheating, it was how you got inspired. And the real prize went to transformation, not invention. And it was all about collaboration, not some lone artist in a dusty attic.
Which kind of leaves us with one last big thought. Titian became one of the greatest masters in history not by rejecting what came before him, but by absorbing it, copying it, and transforming it into something new. So if the greatest artists of all time saw genius in building on the past, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our constant search for what's new, what traditions are we building on today?